Ladies and gentlemen, it's Ukrainian show on Pod TV. My name is Sasha Star, and our guests today are Dr. Jonathan Lockwood. Welcome to the show, Jonathan.
Thank you, Sasha. Glad to be here as always.
Great to have you, as always. And our man in Kyiv, Ivan Kucherenko. Welcome to the show, Ivan.
Hello, Sasha. Hello, Jonathan. Glad to be here today.
Yeah. And just a few minutes before this program, I was watching a Ukrainian podcast about incredible advances of the Ukrainian army actually, it's across the board, almost everywhere on the borderline, on the front line, and the new types of ammunition and weapons that Ukrainians are developing just as we speak, and they are using that against Russians, and they list the Russian cities that are being bombarded and suffering just same as Ukrainian cities as a result of this war. And they were talking about cities as Belgorod is number one, for example, but there are Taganrog, there are cities like as far as Murmansk, right on the almost North Pole, and Kostoman, just almost name it, any city. The only thing they never mentioned Moscow or St. Petersburg. Other than that, almost all Russian cities are under the immense attacks, either already being in place or being planned, and Russians don't have any way to deter these attacks. They don't have any strong anti-drone or anti-ballistic missiles, and so therefore Ukrainians are much better equipped to deal with Russian drone and missile attacks than Russians. They thought that it will never happen.
And then United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia, because we've seen during that start of a new conflict in the Middle East that Iran is using actually the same tactics which is Russia using by these Shahed drones, which is obvious because it was Iran who gave the technology and supplied Russia with the Shahed drones. But what is most important to understand that Iran, thanks to Russia, upgraded their Shahed drones, and the drone which was attacking the NATO airbase on Cyprus, and which was shot down. There in the remnants of the drone, there were found Russian components. So this war is spreading out, and of course it's nice to see Russian cities burning down and citizens of Russia to facing the consequences of that war, which they silently supported or just didn't do anything to stop it. But I think we first of all should watch a little bit wider and probably discuss the future of this war. And the only question I have now, and which I propose to discuss today, is that already a third world war or not yet? Actually, but before that, we can watch this really short video I've prepared for today.
Please. Thank you.
Dubai is on fire. It's been hit by Shahed drones. And millions of tourists from all around the world are witnessing what this city behind me has had to see every single day for 4 years. And Ukraine desperately tried to tell the world what would happen if dictators weren't stopped. And now it's reached every corner of the globe. And look, this is the same evil. Iran and Russia were basically best friends. They shared weapons, intelligence, the whole lot. But again, those buzzing sounds, the sounds of Shaheeds, those explosions, are the same sounds that have ricocheted across this country every single night. It's the same thing. And look, if you're witnessing these sounds for the first time, that buzzing, those explosions, maybe on your televisions, maybe right in front of you in Dubai, think of the fact it's been here all along. And maybe this is the moment that people start waking up.
Very interesting. I would like to mention something that right now there are negotiations between top European powers like UK, Germany, and others to use Ukrainian expertise in using anti-drone defenses and so on. And I think it will happen in the next few days. On the other hand, I'd like to mention that Iran was warning US and European countries and many others that if in case there will be bombardment of Iran by US, Israel, similar to what's happened a few months ago, they will try to their powers, including Shahed, on the primarily American bases in the region, like Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and many others, and that's exactly what's happening. So if you think that Ayatollah Khamenei and 40 top people were absolutely eliminated in the first few hours of the war, so they were still able to continue their strategy of attacking all the Middle Eastern countries, even not necessarily those that have American bases, but primarily those that have. And it seems to me it's funny that they didn't supply the necessary defense against the Shahed and others. So their attacks, I wouldn't say they're widely successful, but still they paralyzed all the air traffic in the region, and the state of Hormuz has been closed. There are untold economic consequences of this war so far. A few servicemen, U.S. servicemen, were killed, and it's unclear to me what is exactly goal of United States, because they already eliminated Ayatollah. So the same, if you will try to compare it to Venezuela, so you capture Maduro and you say, okay, we've got it, our goal is done. So what's the goal here? Jonathan, maybe you have better.
Based on my observation and based on knowledge of the precedents of use of American military power and the apparent direction in which the current administration's foreign policy is going, President Trump has apparently decided, along with the concurrence of his Secretary of War, to throw counterpunches. If it's not practical to actually use military force directly against a particular country such as Iran, the secondary goal, just as desirable, is to prevent them from being able to not only ever produce a nuclear weapon, but also you also notice they are attacking their means of producing missiles and being able to reduce that. So basically eliminating Iran's ability to threaten any country in the Middle East with missile attacks, and also you also notice by the statements of the American leadership, they are encouraging those elements and people within Iran to rise up and change their leadership. And by eliminating the top leadership, they are hoping to create a vacuum, a political vacuum, in which Iran will replace that with people who are more willing to negotiate and less willing to try and prosecute an essentially fruitless war against the nations of the Middle East, and particularly the U.S. and Israel. So the United States is using its military power to stand off at a distance. I'll use the boxing analogy again. They're like a skillful boxer, just throwing good hard jabs to wear down the opponent, wear down their willingness and ability to fight, and while at the same time remaining out of reach of an effective counterpunch by the enemy. So you have here that's the apparently limited objective, in which is more in accordance with the strategy that I have discussed on previous programs, of the U.S. should become the world's geopolitical balancer, not its policeman, not its empire builder, not trying to establish a new American empire, but instead preventing our adversaries from being able to threaten the peace of the United States and its Western allies. So right now, the use of military power is selective in nature, but very intense and short duration. I predict that when the U.S. Congress votes on the War Powers Act, whether or not to grant President Trump the ability to prosecute and continue it to its logical conclusion, and if the United States is able to accomplish its objectives within a 60-day period, then there's no need for them to continue the war or to continue the operations. They will basically they will do what Russia has not done. Russia declared that it was a special military operation against Ukraine. And look at this. It's carried on for 4 years, and the Russians are still no closer to achieving their objective. And in fact, as we are now seeing, the Ukrainians at last have been able to execute a successful counteroffensive, larger than I expected. I was expecting them to launch a counteroffensive to cut off Crimea, which they may still yet do. This offensive in the east, recovering territory and throwing the Russians off balance and losing territory, and according to the latest reports, the Russians are and have been losing men on the Eastern Front at a greater rate than they are able to replace them with recruits.
John, I have something to ask you about the idea to keep the fight at a distance. So therefore, you can inflict whatever damage to Iran you
just keep jabbing and wear them down.
Iran cannot touch you. However, there are a lot of American interests around Iran in all these countries. And it seems to me that so far, U.S. has not demonstrated its ability to defend its assets in these countries. So Iran is attacking these assets. So the only hope is that Iran will run out of ammunition to continue to do so in any reasonable period of time. That could be the case.
Yeah.
But as far as they have a lot of drones and missiles in its possession, it's becoming quite an exercise in it's almost becoming war of attrition, like between Russia and Ukraine.
In this case, just like it is in the war in Ukraine, it's becoming a contest of political wills, the willingness to continue to use their military power in whatever means they have available to accomplish their political objectives. And
so you see what's happening on the markets with oil, inflation.
Okay.
How long do you think Trump can withstand that pressure? Because midterm election, nobody canceled yet.
Well, midterm elections are in November, and as we have seen, a lot can happen in a very short time. Especially if basically it seems that the Trump administration is calculating that it can finish its military operations successfully with what it perceives as a successful outcome, stop, and then resume their economic policies and economic recovery actions, and hope that the results of those economic recovery measures will become visible enough to the American public by the time of the November elections, so that the Republicans will actually be rewarded for the Trump administration's actions rather than punished. So that's their calculation. It may prove to be a correct calculation. That has not yet become evident. So we shall see what the military operations actually accomplish.
Okay, Jonathan, I would like to mention something that people are making their mind for midterm election approximately in July, August, the latest. The oil prices, even if the war would stop today, it would take approximately 4 months to get resupply, to get this Strait of Hormuz reactivated, or so on. It's taken anywhere from 4 to 6 months. So it might be a situation that even if the war would stop today, it may not correct this economic situation caused by this war by the July, maybe even by August time. So this is
it's close timing. I'll grant you that.
timing is huge gamble that Trump is taking now.
And also, what he could also do, just like his predecessor, President Biden, did, release oil from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve into the market in an attempt to lower or deflate or to lower oil prices. That could also occur. That would be a gamble, but it could also occur. So there's still just like a good complicated chess game, Sasha.
And John, I just read just a moment ago the new theory that, we discussed already, that U.S. is not in a great position of necessary ammunition, and some ammunition is getting really short as we speak. So Donald Trump said that this is because the Biden gave all the ammunition to Ukrainians. So therefore, U.S. today is short on ammunition.
It was the time when he said that the warehouses of ammunition in the United States are full, and he continued this war as long as needed. Was it at the same period of time, or the different?
If you don't like what they're saying, just wait 10 minutes.
But unfortunately, the oil prices are really going up, and it will first of all help Russia and assist Russia in continue this war, because they've faced a great budget deficit in the January and obviously in February, but and they had a great stockpile of oil in the sea on their shadow fleet tankers, like 3 million barrels of oil in the sea. And now probably India or China, they will buy that oil with increased prices because they cannot get oil from Iran because of that new war on the Middle East. So Russia, in the end, will be beneficiary of this war. And actually, obviously, it happened thanks to Russia, because Russia and Iran united. And I think that Russia was that country who increased the speed of Iranian nuclear program, because according to the United States and Israeli intelligence, they were like several weeks before creating the several nuclear bombs. So there is a question how they were managed to proceed so quickly with their nuclear problem. The answer is quite simple. Russia helped them.
Which again does not give us any reason to show any mercy whatsoever to Russia in this conflict. If they are trying to enable another member of their so-called alliance to become a nuclear power. And that is simply not something that the Trump administration is willing to tolerate in either case. The Golden Dome that President Trump has been advocating, that is a long-term measure. That is a long-term response. It is. He claims, as I've stated previously, he claims that Golden Dome will be operational by the end of his term. And as I've explained before, there is a significant difference between what the U.S. military calls IOC, initial operational capability, and FOC, full operational capability. Full operational capability means what its name implies, that it would be able to do everything that the president wants it to do. IOC simply means, okay, it is functional as a system, and you can interpret it to mean it can block a certain number of nuclear missiles aimed at the United States. And by implication, it can't block them all, but it does block it would be able to block a certain number. And that, so the theory goes, would create a significant degree of uncertainty in the minds of potential adversaries such as Russia or China as to the outcome if they actually were going to take the big risk, roll the dice, so to speak, and threaten to launch an intercontinental attack on the United States. But beside that aside, this right now is an example. We now have a contest of political wills in two theaters: the Russia-Ukraine war and the air war against Iran. And so now it is a contest of political wills. The United States has some very obvious objectives that it wants to achieve. And as we are seeing now, it is having an indirect positive effect, I contend, on the Russian-Ukrainian war. Elon Musk has cut off Russia's connections to Starlink. That threw them off balance and made it very difficult for them to coordinate their defenses. The Ukrainians have taken good advantage of this. They have launched their counteroffensive on the Eastern Front, exceeding my expectations because I thought they were saving up their resources for a decisive operation to cut off the Crimea, which they still may yet do. They may follow up with this after they have finished exhausting the potential of their current offensive and taking back as much territory from the Russians as possible. And Sasha, do you have any reading on how much territory now the Ukrainians have managed to take thus far in their counteroffensive?
The last figure I saw was 400 square kilometers, but it could be more by now. But
Yeah.
John, these events with the Starlinks and others, they happened well before the U.S. attack on Iran. Now, the other thing what worries me is that in the Ukrainian war, Russia is clearly an aggressor of this war. And what's happened in Iran and Israel, U.S., who are the aggressors?
Good question. The United States would contend that they are taking preventive action. There is such a thing. They are exercising a preemptive strike, striking first, in order to forestall a future active aggression by Iran. Use of nuclear weapons and missile attacks against the U.S. and against Israel in particular.
Yeah.
So they would say, okay, we are heading off a potential future aggressive war by Iran.
But there are some other inconsistencies. For example, Trump said that back in June of last year, U.S. has obliterated all nuclear program of Iran to create a nuclear arms. So what's happening now? Last Saturday, did Iran was able to resurrect its the nuclear threats, which were obliterated just 6 months ago. So they just resurrected it somehow.
Apparently, one would have to infer or conclude from what we are seeing from the actions of the U.S. that the U.S. intelligence community has apparently told the Trump administration, says, oh, by the way, those nuclear facilities that you were asserting no longer exist. Well, we are now, from what we are seeing, the Iranians are steadily trying to rebuild those facilities, and that they are not deterred in the least from their intent to develop a nuclear weapon. If that's what they're telling the president, then that would explain why the president has decided, okay, United States and Israel, we have to go in there again and further reduce not only their ability to develop a nuclear weapon, but also reduce and, if possible, destroy their capacity to build missiles to deliver those nuclear weapons. So you have to sort of take, because we obviously do not know what goes on behind the scenes in the classified realm, in those areas which the United States and obviously other countries try to keep secret and try to keep out of public view. From open source, you can conclude quite a bit. It is possible to conclude quite a bit of what's validly going on. What classified information does is it conceals the specific means, and it conceals it because that is the point of classifying information to begin with. You are trying to protect the source. You don't want your opponent to know how you are doing something. You want them to keep them in the dark as long as possible in order to give your own government and your own military complete freedom of action. So that is what that's why the. Go ahead. Yeah.
I've got another explanation, Jonathan. If you let me tell,
sure.
Probably the previous achievements of that strike on nuclear Iran nuclear facilities, they were greatly exaggerated by President Trump and his team. By the way, I've today find one real funny thing. Do you remember how the biggest and the largest propagandistic newspaper of the Soviet Union was named?
Pravda.
Pravda, truth.
Truth. Can you tell me how the social network of President Trump is named?
Truth Social.
Yeah.
That may be a case of lack of complete self-awareness. He may not be aware of the ironic title, Truth Social, how that resembles the Russian title of its newspaper, Pravda. He may not be aware of it, and his advisors might not be fully aware of it. They don't look like a terribly self-reflective bunch, so they may not be aware of the irony of what they are doing and what titles they are giving it. So right now it is a very strange and ironic situation. And again, it reminds me of what Mark Twain once said: history doesn't repeat itself. It does rhyme, though.
Jonathan, I'd like to mention something, another angle to look at all this through the lenses of America's standing in a world, its soft power. And now, since Trump is trying to organize his state visit to China in early April, I believe. And China, first of all, they have not even agreed to the state visit for Trump. They don't mind him visiting as a private citizen if that's what he likes to do, maybe to vacation in China or something like this. But so far, they have not agreed to a state visit. Number two, as a precondition to state visit, if and when it will happen, they asked America stop any ammunition shipments to Taiwan. So the what was the number, $16 billion worth of ammunition, which was already approved by Congress and by Parliament, by all means in the Pentagon and so on, hasn't been shipped to Taiwan based on Trump's permission to do so, and so far he's not providing the permission. Now, after this attacks on Iran, still ongoing, by the way, they haven't stopped, I see less and less possibility for a state visit of Trump to China. And this is very crucial action because China holds the key to America's ability to get rare earth metals, and which needed for production of everything, from cars to computers to airplanes to just anything. So in this situation, and since no European countries came as an ally for United States against Iran, I see further isolation of United States, regardless of outcome of the war. So if US will not be able to prevail in Iran in any significant way, that is tragic. It's the end of US dominance. Now, if US is successful, and so what would make this invasion successful? I don't get it. If they already killed the Ayatollah and his 40 closest members of his cabinet, if that's not success, then what is, John?
Well, they have achieved that political success already, and so what they are looking for to see if it is we're talking about degrees of success. They've achieved, politically, they have achieved their objective. But what they are doing is they are following up to see if they can accomplish their secondary objectives, which are the sufficiently eliminating Iran's missile production capability, and as well as degrading its nuclear facilities to the point where it gives the United States more breathing room, more time, more breathing in which to react. Ideally, if what would be considered a success is if the U.S. intelligence community, after the smoke is all cleared, evaluates Israel, they compare their notes, and they conclude that Iranian potential for producing nuclear weapons and restoring its missile delivery capability has been delayed or degraded for about a year, possibly longer. If they achieve that, then that gives the United States time to say, okay, we've achieved our objectives, and resume addressing their other priorities, such as restoring their stockpiles and making sure that the economy is growing at a sufficiently brisk pace by the midterm elections so that the Republicans can protect and possibly expand their majorities in the House and Senate. That would be the objective. So now you have it's a fascinating contest. There are still a lot of dynamically moving parts and a lot of things which are very difficult to nail down and predict precisely. But the intent is there. It is a very interesting contest of political wills. And is getting back to the primary focus of our program, the Ukraine war. This is having an overall, I would evaluate this as being an overall positive effect for Ukraine, because it is still steadily weakening Russia. And if they can restore oil production and get that back to where oil prices are going down once again, and if diplomatic efforts and economic sanctions against Russia are fully put into place, where Russia has very few customers, if any, to sell its oil to at a lower price, then all of these parts of the correlation of forces will continue to move in Ukraine's favor and contribute to what most Western analysts do not expect: Ukraine achieving peace through military victory on the battlefield. That is becoming more and more a real possibility.
Agree. Ivan, I have a question to you. I've seen the tables of help to Ukraine in the last 4 years from Europe and from United States. And before 2025, it was about equal, 50% Europe and 50% United States. By 2025, which already ended a few weeks ago, the picture was very different. It was 100% Europe and 0% US. Now, Ukraine is now producing a lot of ammunition and a lot of weapons that actually exceed US samples. And if that's the case, if there is no help of US, what US is doing at negotiating table between Russia and Ukraine? Why nobody kicks them out? Why do we need US there?
US still provides intelligence data for Ukraine, which is really important because US has greater intelligence opportunities, bigger than the most European countries. By the way, I've seen the article regarding the invasion of Russia to Ukraine, and several intelligence agencies confirmed that Russia is going to invade. It was the intelligence agency of United States, of Great Britain, like CIA, MI6, and some intelligence agencies, like intelligence agency of France and of Germany. They've said, no, Russia is not going to invade Ukraine. And that was one of the reasons why Ukraine was actually not so ready for the invasion. Of course, Ukrainian military forces were preparing, but as for the civilian population, as for the Ukrainian government, so they unfortunately were not preparing for the that invasion due to the actual disinformation from intelligence agencies of Germany and France. So coming back to your question, Sasha, the intelligence support of the United States is really important, and the core of Ukrainian air defense is Patriot systems, which only Patriot systems can intercept the ballistic missiles.
That's
And
correct.
the PAC-3 missiles for Patriot systems are obviously produced only in the United States. Now, the Germany is going to start the production of PAC-3 missiles, but for now, they're being provided to Ukraine by United States, but for the money paid by European countries. It's not a military aid from United States like it was before, but it's a fair trade when European countries are buying those missiles for Ukraine. And some part of ammunition, of course, we've seen that some American equipment is quite efficient on the battlefield. Javelin systems, Stinger systems, Bradley IFVs, they are really efficient on the battlefield, and they obviously are being provided by United States and but paid by European countries. So it's important for Ukraine to be an ally of the United States and keep. And as President Zelensky is saying, and I obviously can only confirm that the only person who can make President Putin stop this war is President Trump, because he got all the wages and all the methods. But if he really wants to implement them, this is a really big question, because there is no more sanctions. There is no sanctions pressure on the Russia, though those sanctions were already prepared and supported by majority in the Senate, and they were prepared by the senators, both Republicans and the Democrats, but they are not been implemented and signed by Donald Trump yet. There is no supply of more powerful weapons to Ukraine, like Tomahawk missiles. There were only discussions of that, and now, obviously, because of that war with Iran, the capacity of Tomahawks, which United States needs for this war, is pretty high, and it will not be so easy to supply Tomahawks to Ukraine, even if European countries will pay for them. Actually, because the great problem of the United States and European countries that they were not completely prepared for that war, like war in the Middle East, and for the upcoming Third World War. While we see that Russia, China, Iran, they are preparing for that. They're exchanging their technologies. Now there are Russian companies in Iranian Shahed drones. Iran is using the same tactics he actually seen in Ukraine. It's a symmetric response when Iran is attacking defenseless oil refining industries of United States allies, or of Qatar, of United Arab Emirates, in order to paralyze the oil production, in order to increase the prices on the oil, and in order to those countries to pressure on the United States to stop this war operation. It's the same tactic which actually Ukraine is using against Russia when attacking Russian oil refining industry, in order to Russia to stop this war, because they will, in the end, they will have no oil refining industry at all, and they will have no money for their budget and for their war. So,
and the Russian offensive operations will come completely to a grinding halt.
Yeah. So the problem is that the Third World War is Russian, actually, towards us. But what we are seeing, that United States, European countries are completely not prepared.
Well, they have not. None of them.
In Ukraine, we are joking that in 2022, Ukrainians were begging NATO and the United States to close the sky over Ukraine. And now United States and NATO, they're asking Ukraine to assist in fighting Shahed drones and closing sky over the Gulf.
Yeah.
Jonathan,
Yes.
before we finish, the last
Yes.
question to you.
Sure.
You know
My
that Donald Trump is very sensitive to a stock market, and sometimes his political moves are dictated by how the market reacts to certain things.
And that's to be expected given his background.
Yeah, absolutely. So right now, okay, he killed Khamenei and 40 his closest allies, and he will kill another 40 and maybe more, another Ayatollahs, advisors, the functionaries, and so on. But each day that the war continues inflicts incredible damage on U.S. allies, refineries, U.S. military bases, and so on. The upcoming meeting with Emperor Xi could be jeopardized. So what really, in your opinion, Trump has to do in next day or two to finish it all? Just finish, declare you achieved, you're okay, you kill Ayatollah, you kill 40 advisors. Okay.
What he's looking for is that when his military commanders conducting their operations, they conduct their strikes, and they reach a certain point where the intelligence community collectively, in their report to the president, will tell the Secretary of War as well as the president that that we assess that the Iranian military facilities, nuclear facilities, and their ability to manufacture and produce missile systems has been degraded sufficiently to achieve your objectives. We have achieved the military objective. Once they tell him that, and he can say with a high degree of confidence to the rest of the world that we have achieved our objectives, Iranian missile delivery capability and nuclear capability has been sufficiently degraded to where they do not to present a significant threat to the United States, Israel, or the West for at least the intermediate future. Let's say 2+ years. If they tell him that, then he can say with reasonable confidence then to the public, we have forestalled the Iranian threat and made it possible for the Iranian people to select a new leadership that will be more inclined to cooperate and on a peaceful path with the rest of the world. Until they get to that point, there is no reason to expect President Trump to cease military operations within the boundaries of his capability. He will continue to exercise military power and inflict strikes until the intelligence community informs him, okay, Mr. President, we think you have achieved your objective.
But the intelligence community has informed him 6 months ago that the nuclear capacity of Iran has been obliterated. There was none left. So this intelligence community, either they don't know themselves what they're talking about, or they're saying lies, outright lies to Trump, and he repeats that lies. So what prevents them from doing the same now? It's so murky situation, John.
Of course, it always is.
Yes, there is a fog of war.
Exactly. There's a fog of war, and there are also a great of it's like what Winston Churchill said prior to World War II. He said that the truth in wartime, the truth is so precious that it must be protected by a bodyguard of lies. And so you are seeing the bodyguard of lies in full operation here. So you have to get used to it. It's one of the there are one article that I produced, as well as repeated it in my later book, my analytical method for prediction. There are 4 sources of error in indications and warning. I wrote an article 5 years ago, which actually it's really in 4 ways that intelligence can fail, can be an error. There are four sources. One is the enemy. The enemy successfully conducts strategic deception to fool the opponent into thinking one thing or another. That's the enemy. The second is the analyst. The analyst himself may make mistakes in his analysis through various analytical fallacies. The third is the system, the bureaucracy itself that is at the intelligence community. Assessments can be filtered, watered down, or otherwise modified to where they become inaccurate. And finally, there is the fourth and final source of error, the policymaker, the political figure to whom intelligence is delivered. And that is the most dangerous, because the policymaker, unlike the analyst, the policymaker is the wielder of power. He has the luxury, if you want to call it that, of being able to ignore intelligence assessments which do not fit in with his policy preferences. And this has happened numerous times throughout history, where a ruler will be told something by his advisors and he chooses to ignore it. Such as that Russia is too powerful to be invaded. Well, Napoleon ignored that. So did Hitler.
And Napoleon was not informed about this.
Yeah. He was not well informed, and he overestimated the capability of his own army to defeat the Russian army and occupy Moscow. He thought that would be the end of it. He was in error. So you have various sources of error. While it is possible for the intelligence community to avoid certain of these errors, it is nearly impossible to avoid all four sources of error on a consistent basis all the time. These four sources of error are what I call the occupational hazards of the intelligence profession. They are always present. They will always serve to throw off a policymaker if he is not very careful. So that is what is going on now. You are seeing the assessment of the intelligence community, prior assessment, proved to be an error. They made a mistake. I would contend they simply made a mistake in their assessment. They were overconfident in their ability to assess that the Iranian nuclear capability was destroyed, and they would have to come back behind the scenes to the president and say, Mr. President, we thought the Iranian nuclear capability was destroyed, but apparently we were mistaken. And some people probably lost their jobs as a result. So it's one of those cases where we don't know everything that's going on behind the scenes, but based on historical precedent, based upon what I know of the intelligence profession, based on my career as an intelligence officer, these things do happen. And so now the president, like I say, may well have decided and thought better of the situation and decide, okay, looks like I have to engage in some more military operations to have a greater certainty of having destroyed the Iranian nuclear capability as well as their missile delivery capability. And oh, by the way, this one last thing on the lack of U.S. deliveries of weapons to Ukraine. What is now going on is the United States, in conjunction with the military-industrial complex, the president has probably made it known through his Secretary of War to the defense contractors, okay, we need new contracts. You need to build up the stockpile again because we're going to need them. The United States has not gone to full mobilization or even partial mobilization like they did in World War II. The United States has not gone to war mobilization. Well, since World War II, Korean War, yeah, they had some mobilization, but nothing like World War II. So now you have a situation where if they were ever to do that, that would be a much different story. But the United States leadership does not see it as being necessary to go to full mobilization or even partial mobilization.
I think it's
peacetime. And they're simply ramping up and trying to make it more economically feasible for its defense contractors to build up their stockpiles.
Jonathan, but there is no peacetime anymore. There is a wars all over the world with a different intensity, but it's a fact of life. So I think all countries, and starting with the United States, they have to go to wartime production numbers and really get ready, especially the United States, because if Donald Trump has very aggressive policies, economic policies, tariffs, and so on. So it's unavoidable that wars will happen here and there. And right now, I'm not even excluding the war against Canada, because what's happened is that Canada closed the door They refused to negotiate with Trump anything, policies.
And the U.S. victories of American men and women's hockey were just a warning.
Yeah, okay, that's true. So therefore, there is a temptation after Venezuela, Maduro, after Iran, Ayatollah Khamenei, U.S., especially Donald Trump, can become a little bit bloodthirsty and nothing, something where work doesn't work 100% to his liking here and there. He'll say, okay, where's my Gerald Ford? Go, Venezuela, go to Iran, now go to Greenland, now go to Australia, now go here and there. So he needs several Gerald Fords, by the way. And this is becoming a situation, you have heard about theory of two ballots syndrome. That theory,
what syndrome?
Two ballots syndrome.
Okay.
How it works is this. It's in my younger days, my lawyer told me the story where he wanted to show that certain plan wouldn't work because of this and that and some other consideration. He would say, okay, remember story about two ballot syndrome. Let's see, you have a man and one ballot hit him in his head and another one in his heart. So even if you figured out how to deal with that ballot in his head, and you could conceivably recover that and make him alive, but there is another ballot that hit his heart, so then you will not be able to do that just as quickly as the first one, or vice versa. So the two ballot syndrome is that doesn't matter from which one ballot, but the person will die. It's unavoidable. So in this situation, if Trump has on his plate the economic disputes, the tariffs, now Iran, and then finish the business with Venezuela. I don't even mention the Russian-Ukrainian war. It's almost non-event for now for Trump, and an upcoming midterm election or so. So it reminds me not two ballot syndrome, it's almost like six ballot syndrome, when you have to fight in here and over there and over there. It's becoming quite unbearable, even for such talented performer as Trump. It may be just a little bit too much in the upcoming summit with Emperor Xi, if it will ever take place. Jonathan, what do you think about all that?
Что я думаю?
Что ты думаешь, дорогой?
My turn with the grenade. Okay. Now, again, what you raise are a number of fascinating points, which are all potentially very valid. And right now, it is such a really a test of President Trump's abilities. You know, he claims to be basically the master of being the art of the deal. Well, this is testing the limit of what he's able to do, and what is going to be a very delicate balance of using military power in conjunction with economic levers of power and diplomatic means of exercising power. All of these are going to be crucial to whether or not he is able to continue his administration's agenda beyond the midterm elections. So I would hesitate to say exactly what is going to happen in the coming until we see the outcome of these current military operations. Is there going to be a visible success that President Trump can capitalize on and say, okay, mission accomplished, now next item? And he's going to try to solve these problems one at a time, in sequence, rather than all at once.
All at once is impossible. And
all at once you're right. All at once is impossible.
Jonathan, I think we should both advise him to visit more often his church and synagogue and just pray, I guess.
Yeah, he really does need divine guidance at this point.
Yes,
I mean, well, presidents need divine guidance at all times when you get right down to it. Given the history of the United States, and given the Christian principles upon which the founding fathers based it, now they were not advocating a specific religion. They did not advocate a specific religion, but what they wanted to create was a political environment in which freedom of worship for both Jews and Christians would be entirely possible and not disturbed.
And now Muslims as well.
Yeah. Well, they say freedom of religion. It has that implication. to create an atmosphere in which people are allowed to disagree. But in this case, the founding fathers originally intended for the atmosphere to be primarily for Judeo-Christian, because as John Adams had said, this system of government that we have created was made for the governance of a Christian people. It is wholly unsuited for the governance of any other. And there's a certain amount.
They called it, and still do, I believe, Judeo-Christian country or Judeo-Christian religion, as such. And
that is unprecedented in world history, and it is still, in the view of many scholars, it is still justifiably calling the United States the Great Experiment, as Abraham Lincoln referred to in his addresses, in his inaugural addresses. So all of this is still very much a work in progress, and it is, in the current situation, the United States system of government is being put, I would argue, to the supreme test.
Absolutely.
And so this will be and Ukraine has its part to play. And I would say Ukraine is playing its part very skillfully at this point.
So far, it's brilliant.
They are keeping the Russians off balance. They are demonstrating that they are the aggressors, and they are being punished for their aggression. And with any kind of divine favor and good fortune, that Ukraine will successfully be able to deliver the successful counteroffensive knockout punch.
And I would like to mention, before we finish, the great vision of General Zaluzhny back in 2003, which is 3 years ago now, where he said that there has to be technological transformation of the way we conduct this war. And at that time, it was almost like either premature or probably not well-founded. Maybe he didn't explain it properly at the time, but he was right 100%. And now we see what he was talking 3 years ago about. Now we can see it's all being implemented. This is a genius of him. Ivan, what do you think?
Yeah. It's some kind of.
Did we wake you up?
Yeah.
Were we so excited? Were we so excited? We just, I could use a good nap.
It was a sudden grenade. Me.
Okay, got it.
Also, it's late in Kiev, or it's getting late. So.
Oh, that's right. We keep forgetting. It's very late for you.
Exactly.
It's very late, and we're expecting, by the way, Russian strike tonight, because they were quite a little bit quiet during several days, obviously preparing their stockpiles of missiles. So the atmosphere here is quite a little bit nervous.
Understandable.
Because of that. But I hope that everything will be well, and our air defense will manage to defend us against their strike.
Excellent, Ivan. I would like you and Jonathan, thank you so much for today's program. I think we covered a lot of ground, as you said before the show started, and we did. And now I'm looking forward to see both of you on Friday. Same place, same time, and I think we will have a lot of news to discuss. And in case of Ukraine, positive news. In case of United States, Israel, Iran, positive news. But every participant will claim all news is positive, so we don't know really what it is. But we'll figure out that on Friday. Thank you so much. Slava Ukraini.
God bless
Bye-bye.
America.
Героям слава. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.